Hello and welcome to the dungeon crawl. It is always so hot coming through that fire, Ryan, isn't it? Always
Yeah,
so
I mean,
warm.
dragons blowing in your face, man. It's a scary thing.
Have we even named the dragon? Which, by the way, his name is Ryan,
His name is Braxton.
and we should at some point. What color of dragon is he even?
I feel like standard red, man.
Red.
That's always the standard go-to. Badass, sick
Which
color.
one on which manual from D&D created by Wizards of the Coast has that red dragon and that fighter with the
Trademark?
shield and sword on it? You know the one he's like this? And the dragon's almost like
probably
cross-eyed
first
looking?
edition. I don't know, man.
No. It's 5e. It's like Player's Handbook or something.
Oh, you're talking about like okay, yeah, you're talking about
Yeah.
Player's Handbook, right? I'm thinking of like the old one.
Like I don't even know what you're talking about, man.
You know what I'm talking about.
Do I?
Yeah, let me
think I
post
do.
it in the chat here real quick. You know exactly.
thinking of-
He knows what I'm talking about, guys. Don't
I'm
worry.
thinking of the one that's on the Player's Handbook, man.
No, it's the one you're thinking of. This one.
That guy's so cool looking. Let me see. We'll see what's going on. Where are you
This
posting
one.
this mess? Oh, man, you probably just heard that. That's okay. Everybody loves Discord noises. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. What's that from?
That's from the old editions, man.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen that elsewhere before.
I mean, it's spread around. It's a famous thing. It's also used to be behind me in our old
That's where I've always seen it from.
in our old D&D setup. It was right behind me. I might have to move
Well,
it now over here.
Yeah, I'll miss it. Well, I mean, speaking of old D&D setup, Ryan, why did you move your stuff in the first place?
That's a great question, man. So I have been straight up living the life, having 2 man caves. I had I had one room. So I have an apartment, and there's 3 rooms in it. There's the living room / kitchen area. Then there's 2 bedrooms, and one of the bedrooms has my streaming equipment, which has takes up the whole room pretty much. And then the other room was a D&D room. There was just a long table, and I had it all set up. It sounded great. It looked cool. But then when we didn't play for 2.5 months, it felt kind of pointless. That was a room in my apartment that I just didn't go into.
That's a
So
lot
I was
of
like, you
money,
know
too.
what? Yeah, I said, screw it. And I got a bed now, so I have a bedroom. And now I've moved the D&D setup to a different room.
I'm sure the significant other played a part in that.
She probably, I mean, she didn't care otherwise, but she definitely appreciates having an actual bed to lay
Yeah.
down upon.
I would too.
But yeah, it was really because there was no room there. There's no point.
Well, I mean, you did this recently, because we finally managed. If you guys, any of you that have listened straight through all of our episodes, there was one where we said, okay, pandemic's in effect. I was in Texas. Things are going AWOL. My work was super busy. There was no way we could do D&D.
yeah, it was a crazy time.
It's been like 10 weeks or something. I don't know about to the day. The 16th. It's been 2 months. It was 2 months and 1 day. Wow. That's a long time without D&D. And we had to, a couple of days before, figure out how the hell we were going to get back into this. Because for me as a player, it's like that video game you've played, and maybe it was like too difficult at one point and you got off of it. But it's an RPG with a lot of elements to
That was
it.
Guitar Hero for me.
Oh no, Guitar Hero is
too
like
hard.
riding a bike for me. You put expert mode in my hands right now on like Guitar Hero.
Oh,
Metallica.
yeah, I'd be fine now.
Done.
But I tried to do expert mode back in the day, couldn't do it. And so I got upset, left it, and I came back like a year later and was crushing everything in expert.
You were the
sick.
best advice my brother gave to me. Guitar Hero, a resident expert in my family. Best
Okay.
advice he ever gave to me. It's just another button. And then I was able to do it.
All
I
right.
went I went from medium to hard mode. He's like, you know what? Technically, medium is harder than hard. I was like, you're right. And I went to expert. But speaking of that video game, that book, it's hard to get back into it after you're
It
not
is.
playing it for a while. You're like, man, I'm not in the headspace for this. I
So
have
then you
no
restart
idea
it.
what buttons to press. Yeah.
And then you are in the endless cycle of playing it for another few months, dropping the game, coming back a year later, not remembering what happened, and just rinse and repeat. That's why I've never beat Witcher 3.
Oh boy, I've not even gotten close to that game. But for D&D, there's probably a lot of you that have had people that go on hiatuses or you take breaks. You're like, we'll come back to it. And, those of you DMs who probably roll with the punches and say, you know what, I'll work on my material like Ryan here did. Whenever our group broke up a bit, he just shook his head. We're on camera right now. We're professional podcasters.
Yeah, look at us.
But he worked on his material, kept it in the same world, and fixed it a bit. So roll with the punches. But, if you want to maintain that group, Ryan, what did we end up doing? And if you haven't seen by the episode title, which I have no idea what the hell we're doing
Never
now. But we're going to talk about revisiting D&D, getting back into the swing of things. So, Ryan, what the hell did we do?
Well, it was really Braxton's idea. I don't know where you got the idea from, but he sent me a message and said something along the lines of, hey, it'd be really cool if we had, a recap, obviously. And I was like, yeah, we definitely should. I said, maybe we'll recap the whole campaign because it's been like 2 months since we played. And Braxton said, well, how about somebody to help us get back into character? And so we came up with asking kind of role-play-esque questions. Similar, I thought about like Until Dawn, and he thought about like Choose Your Own Adventure. So what did you say your idea was from?
For what?
You said you were thinking of, so I was thinking of Until Dawn, where you sit down and there's like a therapy session. The guy talks to you.
Same thing. We're on the same track. Like I mentioned that, and then you gave the example. I was like, yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, but there was something specifically you were referring to. I don't know what it was.
I'm not going to remember it.
Yeah,
we were talking in voice chat, so I can't find it right now.
Yeah. Point being, I came up with first I laid down the entire recap, the highlights, because it would have been forever if I had written down every single point that happened. Luckily, one of my players, and DMs, get your players to do this, at least one of them out there, take extensive notes, go crazy with it. Because then I can go back later and refresh my memory, and was able to pop down every little detail. And then I tried to grab at least 2, sometimes 3 questions. I think everyone had 2 questions along this thing. For example, Braxton's character hadn't been a part of a group in a long time, had trust issues. And that was a very important thing early on in the campaign because he didn't talk to anybody. So I asked him, he was the first one, because he even said, I'll try to help set the example since we came up with the idea together. The question being, how did it feel to be a part of a group for the first time? And he, explained it in his character, and then I did that for everyone else. And I think it went over well.
I think it went over really well. I mean, I love stuff like that. And I mentioned this about our initial startup for this campaign as well. I didn't speak, because I didn't know these people and wasn't sure, outside of one recurring player, if they were going to take me leading the conversation for granted and not speak. So I just
that's what happened last campaign.
Yeah. But not everybody's comfortable with that. I love talking. As you can tell, I am on a podcast to speak.
Yeah.
And hear Ryan and I's voice. But for the RP questions, I've pulled up the questions on Discord now. Actually, Ryan, you kind of brought it up. You said any recommendations, like an RP question or something, and I go, yeah, I don't know what you should do, but something that evokes getting a personal moment with our story always pulls me in. So just something that really calls to our group, interact with question, getting personal mood. Yeah. So Ryan asked these questions, and I could tell. I think you went to Nikki after me first. I think
after you was to our guy, our friend Daniel. I asked him about his. I
think you went in a strategic line, depending on who would need the most like examples to go next.
That also, as well as just how it came up organically in the story and stuff. And the recap was like, okay, so this fits well with this person, this fits well with that person, and figured out from there.
Yeah. So even though I'm like really invested in my character, I love them. I've commissioned like 2 things of them. I like looking at them, thinking about them. It's still hard for any sort of role playing to just like go straight into it without any prep. And any of you that are actors out there, you do a warm up unless you're just like Jesus or the character is basically you already. So Ryan did this, and I think I didn't notice any bad sides to it. I mean, the only thing that happened was maybe like me or somebody else took a second to come up with an answer, but that is the sign of either a great actor or somebody that's really invested in it if they're taking a moment to think and get into the character. Like, random hot tip for you people auditioning. If you're doing it and you have a monologue and you're in front of the people, if you take like a second or 5 seconds with your eyes down, closed, and just getting into the character, auditioners love seeing that. This is what happened, basically. Yeah,
kind of sliding into that character's skin.
Mm-hmm. So I think it was perfect, and honestly, I would love to do it every session if it had a purpose. Doing it every session could get a bit redundant. Like our friend Kenneth had a good suggestion. It was to have your character share something about themselves that the party would have known by traveling with them, in case you don't already do travel talks. So that's a suggestion, but I really, really liked it. But as a DM, Ryan, what was it like coming up with the questions? How much work was involved in it? And how did you feel after it was finished?
It didn't take that much work. Like I said, I just laid out the basic plot of our campaign, and it kind of made itself. Like there were questions that I thought of that I wanted to ask the character and say, okay, how did this affect you? How did this make you feel? I want to really get into that character's brain. And I also wanted to, I wanted to start off, I wanted them all to be fairly personal questions, but the more I asked you guys, the more and more personal they got, to make you guys, like, when one of the characters left the party, I was like, this guy just left and you guys woke up to his empty bed. How did that make you feel? Like, it made me feel pretty bad, I guess.
It's so that was a hard question to answer, mostly because me as a player, he's still there.
Yeah, he's just sitting there chilling.
So he's just sitting there playing a different character. And his current character was about to die, the one that he's been playing as in the meantime, and did die, had 1 death save, he failed it. I'm like, okay, so I know his character's coming back, so I was just waiting for it.
Yeah.
But when you asked the question, like I genuinely thought, as carrying for a moment, I'm like, well, it sucked. He heals us. He had a utilitarian purpose. So he was a good friend and brought a good balance, but we're both strong-headed and know where we needed to go, what we needed to do. So I respected it. Like I gave a genuine response based off of my character. And I think both Robin and Nikki, our fellow players, did as well.
And that was also important to keep in mind. That was a while ago. I think one of our players mentioned that we were on this current arc with this new character for like 7-8 months, maybe something like that. So that event happened a while ago, and everyone had to think about bring themselves back to that moment and think, okay, how really did this make me feel? And since he, as the character, came back that same session, I think it was a good kind of full circle.
Yeah. And the moment he left was a really impactful portion in our campaign too. Like everything around Domir's, some of my my most memorable moments in the campaign were around him. And this is just some NPC that Ryan came up with. So it was really fun to see, I guess, each milestone, for lack of better terms, because that's how we're leveling up. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I really loved it. So I think for those of you in a campaign, even if you don't go on a hiatus, sometimes you can get into a rut with your character. Maybe you're a dynamic person in game, so you should be evolving and changing and doing a reflection on what's happened in the campaign. From a player standpoint, I think is really valuable. And I think I'd really like it if Ryan implemented this a bit more. And I'm glad that he thinks it's valuable. So like if a year goes down the line and we've got a good moment of pause or something, I think it could be fun to bring it back.
Even not like that, like DMs, if you wanted to implement something like this in your game, and even I might consider it, is if you already do a recap at the beginning of every session, you could already implement it in, and maybe not ask everyone a question if not everyone had the spotlight on them last time, but at the very least ask one person a question that made an important decision. Though you could also come into the issue if it's something that happened super recent, maybe that character or player hasn't really processed it themselves or wants to talk about it with the other players firsthand. You can have some weird meta problems, I guess, depending on how your party works.
Yeah.
So it's important to ask questions that aren't super impactful like that.
What do you think? This idea just came to me about either the DM posing a question at the beginning of a session to get a character to say something, and then moving into the session as if that character said it to their party right then and there, as either an NPC said it, or you could message somebody prior to the next session and say, hey, you three, I want Carrion to start the session by saying something reflecting. Can one of you give me a question that I'll pick and pose at the beginning of the session, and you get a warm start that way, if you're not immediately in an impactful thing, or you're a moment that's a respite. Ryan's smiling. I think you like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's very cool. It's a good way to enforce party conversations. 'Cause I think I've been lucky as a DM that both of my parties and campaigns have had very good conversations and party talks, but I don't think every campaign has that, because everyone plays for different reasons.
Right.
But this can be a good way to help enforce that. And stuff I did last campaign, and I mentioned this to Braxton's, where I asked them a question, and this goes back to our Curse of Strahd kind of crossover that I had on my campaign, is I had one of the questions that I asked. The session that the party was going, at least I envisioned, was going to go fight Strahd. I asked them, now that your character has met and had a conversation with Strahd face to face, how does your character feel? Are they afraid, or why or why not? Just to get them in the mindset of, this is the big bad villain. Let's see how it's going for them and what's going on. There's other questions that I've thought about, but I've never brought up. And you can DMs feel free to steal some of these or tweak them, or not even use them if you think they're stupid. But you could have your players talk about their favorite, their childhood friend, their childhood rival, a character's perfect afternoon, things that aren't too personal, things that probably wouldn't normally come up in everyday conversation, but things that help flesh out the character. Has your character ever told anyone, I love you? Why or why not? Describe a moment where you felt like a villain, where you felt like a hero. Do you regret it, or what do you think about it? Stuff like that.
These are all fun acting exercises. I'm getting excited about it. Like,
pretty much.
I think a game that does this pretty well, this is a video game, so maybe it's not too applicable, but I think you'll immediately know what I'm talking about, Ryan, with Red Dead Redemption. What happens when you start the game up every time?
There's pictures? Is that what you're talking about? Pictures?
No, I mean, the moment you control Arthur when you get into the game. Do you not know? I'll tell you right away.
No, tell me. I don't remember.
So every time you start,
paying attention.
That's the perfect design, because you start and he's in a new location doing something.
That's true. That's a good
he's
point.
On his horse, or I woke up one time and I was at this house where there was some sort of cult and a seance happening inside, and I walked in and he's like walking around investigating. I'm like, this is cool as hell.
How did you get here, Arthur?
Yeah, I don't know. His horse was sitting outside. Something was already going on. So if you're in a campaign where you guys are constantly traveling and you've ended a session on a moment where you guys hit the road, do something like pose them a question, give them into a moment. It's like acting exercises. This is the situation, just like you do when you describe a room and wait for them to react. You can set the stage before the session begins. And like I said, make a sort of alteration on that question acting exercise when it begins with an NPC, or just get somebody to, before the session starts, think about a thought that they want to share and begin it that way.
And it might be a little weird at first, but I think and this goes for almost anything D&D role play related, if you as the DM, or hell, you as the player, if someone is super invested into it and sets the stage and gets everyone else into it, I think people are very quickly to follow suit. Like
for next session, I may even want to start with Carrion digesting it, because I felt like I didn't get to say everything I wanted to in that moment. So a lot of his processing might happen as they've just gotten out of the situation.
Right.
So I've had a couple of thoughts of what I want to do. And I think that's a result of Ryan doing DMing well, making me invested as a character and really, really wanting to affect the world in a certain way or get my thoughts out. I genuinely felt like I had a conversation with somebody that I didn't get to say everything, and I was like laying in bed or taking a shower. I was like, I should have said this. I should have done that. And it was like a genuine regret thing. And I think what happened is it's a direct result of that warm start we had.
100%. I was super nervous heading back into it, but once I had that going, like I'd picked out music that I had set up ready to go. I
He
had
was
the
playing
song
Kingdom
planned.
Hearts stuff before we started.
That's true. I was.
It was making me so sad.
Yeah,
Even my girlfriend who was listening said she was kind of feeling the emotion in the air. And we'll definitely get onto this one point, but I think we don't put a ton of production into the podcast. We chat, minimal editing, and keep going, which is great. But if we want to do an episode on music, we'd have to do some research, find royalty-free music, and invoke some conversations with pieces that go with it. But I think something that can help immediately, just in a passive way, is music. And Ryan always does great with that. Always.
100%.
And I'm sure he's got resources that he uses to find stuff. And we've even got, in our podcast descriptions, those are mostly sound effects. But if you want to peek through those websites, that's a lot of royalty-free stuff you can start using to get into the foray of putting music into your game. Hell, if you're like me, when I DM, I just use RhythmBot on Discord, and I find a playlist of a video game that I enjoy. It's a roulette, like maybe I'll look up Dragon's Dogma soundtrack or Nier Automata or a specific song, and you've got to do exclamation point play and the link, and then you hit it and make sure everybody's got their volume level set correctly. There's a bit of setup to it, but there's a way to do it even during the pandemic, and that's one of the more complicated via Discord.
Yeah, it's worth it. I mean, I've noticed when, like, there was a sad moment, I'd play a certain song, and then after, everyone starts kind of getting into the sad moment, and then after the session, I had one of my players come to me and say, "Okay, what song was that when that guy was dying? I loved it." I was like, "Okay, it was this one. You can go find it and cry to yourself."
Well, then you've had recurring songs that come up, like whenever anything from the Void or what we consider the Far Realms in our campaign happens. There's this like eking noise. It sounds like something coming out of a portal that's just opened, which literally you've used it as before, and it lets us know individually what's going on.
Yeah, so shit's going down.
It was so good. So we know, like at the beginning of the campaign, depending on what music is going on, it puts our brain in the right headspace. So I think
last session I saw when I put a certain song on, everyone's face like, "Uh-oh, what have we just unleashed upon ourselves?" Yeah.
So it works really, really well. So I think in terms of getting back into it, that's what you can do. It's a scary thing. I was even nervous, even though I think everybody was very excited to get back in. So I couldn't say that I was more excited than the rest of everybody.
You even asked at the beginning, before I started the recap, you asked, "Is anyone else nervous?" You were. Yeah. It's tough.
I had a bit more going on because it was the resolution of my immediate arc. Or at least figuring something out for my character.
At least part of it.
Really fun. Yeah. So I guess take an analysis of where you're at in the campaign and really address it and hit it home. Use that start with a bang thing. I can help.
So a little peek behind the curtain for Braxton and for everyone. Okay. So it was 2 months between us playing, and there had just been a really big fight prior to us stopping. I had planned for other big fights to occur going on, and I told them that there was a time limit thing, that's why this one fight didn't occur, and that was true. But there's also another fight that I had planned in between and stuff going on. But I thought that the fight wouldn't have been earned if we had just hopped into a fight after 2 months of not really following what was going on and just hopping back into this another big fight the last 2 hours most of our session. It just would have felt like combat. It wouldn't have felt like an important combat scenario. So I tweaked some things and ordered some things around to make it more of an RP based. Of course, combat definitely could have erupted it at any moment, but it turned it into a more RP based scenario. I think it ended up working much better.
I mean, peek behind player curtains, I guess. I didn't want combat to happen the whole time.
Exactly. See?
And whether it was like my thing or not, my arc or not, it was nice to ease into it, I suppose. So maybe not going with the bang. It's certainly an option just to like splash them with water and wake them. But I think the RP questions did that.
Well, a different kind of bang. It doesn't have to be like a Shakespearean bang where combat starts right at the beginning. It can be more of a slow burn bang
'Cause I thought for sure we were gonna fight fight Hammond, this guy that we've heard about for sessions and sessions.
He's been around.
He's been here for a long time, since we've even started the campaign, and he went into this place that's similar to the Far Realms, seeking power, and we finally get there after taking our trademark amount of time to think and prepare and try to figure out what to do, plan and deliberate, going through a puzzle or two, and we get there and there's this old man laying on the ground who's been aged and he's insane, and it turns out it's this guy who couldn't handle the power of the void, but we can. So I was happy. I was like, man, I want this session to be it and done. And I think Ryan was on the same page and we did it.
Yeah.
Even I think every person is gonna have I want X to happen during the campaign at any moment in time. When you're coming back from 2 months, I'm sure Ryan talked to everybody at some point and tried to take inventory of their thoughts. Did you do anything like that?
I mean, a little bit. I touched base with everyone. I used to do this a lot in the old campaign. I've done this occasionally in this one, where if we have to take a week or two off, I'll touch base with them, ask them some roleplay questions, at least get them thinking and staying in the mindset. Have them create an NPC that I can toss in somewhere, something along those lines. And I did that with this, where I just kind of checked in with everyone, how everyone was doing, where they were feeling, what they wanted out of the campaign, etc., just to kind of get me and everyone else on the same page.
Man, there's a few things more, I guess, exciting. That's not the exact word I'm trying to, like, enticing or pulls me in than when a name drop happens from my background. Because it hasn't happened at all for mine outside of the character I used to play, the brother Nowhere, who I've been searching for this whole time, my past player character. But you name dropped my villain.
Yeah, there was some name drops going on.
You name dropped my villain, and I came up with that name when I was on a plane coming back from Texas, and I had just bought a Surface laptop, which I had since returned. Like, you remember that time?
Yeah.
Where I almost missed the plane because of the car returning that back? That was a mess. But I wrote that way back then in the air, and I was just like, oh, damn, stuff's going down. It's happening. So you take inventory of ways to, like, snap your character back in, your players back in. You know the little carrots you can pull in front of them to slink them back into their character. I think Ryan's a great example of a DM that knows his players very well. So take some notes, people.
Take those notes.
Take them. But I think that's a good book into the first part of this. There's actually, again, we got some news.
Ba-da-ba-ba-doo.
I don't know if that's what we're doing, but Ryan, guess what?
Oh, good Lord. What is that? Do you have a stroke live on podcast?
I did, but I think you'll think it's warranted. Do you want to know what news I have today?
Yeah, I'm interested. I know nothing. So
do you want to take a hot guess?
Does it involve warlock stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Kinda. Yeah. Oh. Yes.
Okay.
So, Unearthed Arcana released
really?
a new subclasses revisited.
Oh my god.
He's looking it up. May 12th or 15th, so like last week.
Guys don't rest.
They don't, but at least they're going back to material that they released previously. Of course, this is playtest stuff. I'll try to run through really quickly. So there are 3 subclasses that they've visited, and they've done this in the past before. They reworked the Revived, which, if you guys recall back when I did that, I had some big thoughts on it. It's really weird. It's a rogue class that basically has lived countless lives before and gets reincarnated and can pull on the memories of these dead pasts.
Which was a cool idea.
Yes. Completely changed it. Completely. It's now the Phantom.
Okay.
I'll tell you about what that is in a second. They went back to the Noble Genie from the Warlock subclass, which was the class that allowed you to use this genie to tether people to it. And
we talked about that?
We did. You could get, I think I was with you in your house.
It's that forgettable, apparently.
Yeah, you could tether teammates or creatures to this genie bottle, and you could get strange buffs from it, and you could even heal people. It was a very support-based class, but it, like, you couldn't get any, it like did no genie things, and it didn't work out too well. I didn't like it at all. It felt very throwaway, but this was the beginning of it. They completely worked it as well. The final thing is a bit more exciting. They pulled the Archivist from 3.5e D&D and turned it into the Order of Scribes new wizard subclass. So this isn't a rework, but they brought it back. And
that's cool.
Really cool. So let me start off with giving you a bit of an idea about the Phantom. So the changes in theme that they did with the Phantom, the Revived is now what it's called, the Phantom. So it is, instead of being a reincarnation or being able to take tokens from past lives, it's able to speak with those past lives, commune with them. They're not their own past life, but through bringing people near death, killing people, or communing with the dead, they are able to reap the benefits from that.
Okay, I like that.
So because they dance with death, they can speak with it.
That's
rather than saying, this is a guy who dies all the time. What a failure of a rogue. What the hell? This is somebody who takes so many risks, is so near death's door that they are able to pull some boons from it. And jumping through some things, essentially they're able to, very similarly to the first third level ability, speak with those who have died and begin to cling with you. So every short or long rest, you're able to get a proficiency of a tool, or a proficiency in a tool or something like that of your choice. It lasts again until you use the feature. So you can change your tool proficiency or your skill proficiency. That didn't change at all outside of the flavor of where you get it. Wails from the Grave, this is completely different. So whenever you're about to kill somebody or get them closer to death, you basically get a second sneak attack that does psychic damage. So when you use your sneak attack, you do that, and then anybody within 30 feet of the creature that you've currently sneak attacked, take half your sneak attack dice, and it does it in psychic damage to the one that you've targeted 30 feet away.
That's powerful.
So it's basically the person that's about to die wailing a death scream that affects somebody else.
That can get pretty crazy at higher levels.
Yes, it can. Bringing back the as many times as your proficiency bonus thing that I'm really liking. You can do this as many times equal to your proficiency bonus. So up to 4 or something, or 5, whatever your proficiency bonus gets to.
And it does make the rogues a little bit more impactful. I don't know, because with like sneak attacks, it's kind of like their version of spells, allows them to do stuff in the middle of the battlefield, but there's too many limitations on it that I remember one of our players was like, you guys get to do all these cool things, and I just kind of walk up and hit stuff. This would allow them to be more precise about it.
Well, let's put this in an ideal situation. Imagine you're fighting something that's immensely weak to psychic damage, and then another thing that's weak to physical damage that can stay on the ground. You'll poke the one thing, and then you get more damage on the other, and you're getting, your max combo damage out of there. So the next big thing that this whole class works around at level 9, which is a bit late to get it, but that's how rogues work, is tokens of the departed. So whenever you kill something or a life ends in your presence, you can take a token of their soul as a reaction. When a creature that dies with you 30 feet, you open your free hand and receive a tiny trinket. That is the soul. The DM chooses its form, blah, blah, blah. It can be from the trinkets table. While you have this, you now have advantage on death saving throws and constitution saving throws, as you have enhanced vitality. What?
Wow.
Keep going. There's more to this. So you can have up to, I think, your proficiency bonus maximum. So you can have probably 5 of them at level 20. It doesn't stack or anything. So as long as you have 1 with you, you get that bonus. And also, you can ask a creature by expending one of these tokens a single question that you pick, and this soul answers in the language it knew in its life, very similar to the Speak with the Dead or whatever that spell is called. Under no obligation to be truthful, answers as concisely as possible, eager to be free. So you're keeping this thing's soul, and you can ask it a single question if you have 5. So in order to give you value, you snap it away. It's really cool. So you'll see a trend with this class that it's about dancing with death, staying in as much as possible, killing as much as possible, and reaping those benefits. So for their final thing,
the trinkets, the first trinket that pops into my mind that I would recommend people check out is not any of the trinkets in the handbook, but the trinkets in the Gothic trinkets in Curse of Strahd. Those I think would be perfect for this. Those are all very creepy, dark trinkets.
Curse of Strahd just has a bunch of great stuff. Get that book. It'd be a great idea to pull anything from it. So the level 9 thing changed completely. Connect with the Dead. It used to be a very just speak with the dead skill. It wasn't that cool. This is a lot more active. You use it in many, many more ways. Ghost Walk. So this is also completely different from 13. It's more similar to the 17th level one from the previous. You can now turn ethereal or spectral like ghost form, say when you're in the middle of a fight, about to die. This gives you this gives enemies disadvantage to attack you. And you can also fly at a movement speed of 10. Same thing where if you land inside of something, you take 1d10 force damage because it hurts you and affects your ethereal form. You can stay in it for 10 minutes. You can use the feature you can use the feature as long until short or long rest to bring it back, or you can refresh it with your token. Using the token again. So Death Knell, the final one, Knell. When you use your Whales from the Grave feature, you can now deal psychic damage to both the first and the second creature. So you're doing sneak attack damage, half psychic damage, and half psychic damage to another target at 17th level.
I like the continual use of the trinket, bringing it back.
Yeah, it makes it feel really great. It's not just a level that they popped in there. Warlock Genie guy is pretty easy to sum up. They made it more genie. You have this patron that is a genie. He's conniving. He tries to trick you over. But as you level up, you adopt his skills and abilities. They added, rather than it just being a genie, there are 4 elemental genies that you can pick, similar to different gods that you could have picked. So, of course, there's the Earth, Air, Fire, Water, which is the Tao, Genie, Ifrit, or Merid. Each of those have new spells that they've added. You can look at those. They're elementally bound.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. But everybody gets these blanket genie spells. I'll go through these. Detect good and evil, phantasmal force, create food and water, phantasmal killer, creation. You want to know what the 9th level one that you can now get as a warlock?
I see it.
Wish.
That is interesting. Yeah.
It's in the spell list, but you can't get it.
I'm not a big Wish fan.
I just think it's cool that it's in there.
It is. I've just never been partial to Wish.
So because this is Warlock, I read through it a lot more.
Maybe because I'm a DM.
Yeah, it's true. I can run through this very quickly. It's pretty similar to the first part, except for your vessel. Now you're allowed to go into it. It's a new space for you. So you can go inside this ability called Bottle of Respite. It's a 20-foot radius cylinder, 20 feet high, and it's got like nice cushions, low tables. It's comfy, cozy.
It's cute.
You can remain inside of it equal to your proficiency bonus up to that number of hours. So 2, you can be in it for 2 hours.
Can you bring others into it?
Later you can at 10th level. So it takes some time. So if it breaks while you're inside of it, you come out of it, etc. Yada, yada. You can find more about that. Of course, there's some things that happen with that. Then Genie's Wrath happens. This is also at level 1. During each of your turns, when you hit a creature with an attack roll, you can now add your proficiency bonus damage of the elemental type once per turn. So every turn, you now get bonus damage equal to your proficiency as long as you hit, and you can choose to, elemental damage. So if you hit somebody 1d10 with your whatever weapon, you can add on 3 fire damage that one turn.
Okay.
Small little thing, so it's not super impactful. It's just up to 5 damage throughout the entire campaign if you're going to level 20.
Yeah.
It's okay. Your vessel has an AC equal to your spell save, which is cool because it needs to die, but it's immune to poison and psychic. If it's destroyed, blah, 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 you can bring it back with a seance, basically. Elemental Gift. At 6th level, you begin to gain resistance to whatever element your genie is, as well as you're able to give yourself a flying speed of 30 that lasts for 10 minutes, and during which you can also hover. Kenneth and I were talking about this, as whether it just means you can hover, but I rolled that anything that says you have a flying speed of 30 means you can fly 30 feet every 6 seconds, and you can hover. I don't know if this means that with the flying spell, you can't hover or what, but maybe they just need to add that in. You can cast this as a bonus, Ryan.
Yeah.
Bonus action. And I'll finish this up quicker. But you get this back on a long rest. It's equal to uses of your proficiency score. Sanctuary Vessel, you can bring willing creatures within 30 feet into it with you.
There we go.
Hold on. This is insane.
Well, you said 10th level, right?
Yes.
That's
pretty
earlier than like if you get the Magnificent Mansion. That's at like level 13 for most. This is better probably, and
Did you read it while
much
stopping?
earlier on. What's that?
Did you read it at all?
No, I haven't. Ruin it for me.
Okay, so as a bonus action, this isn't the cool part. You can eject any number of creatures from the vessel, and everyone is ejected if you leave the vessel or it's destroyed. So you can use this as an action to pull people in, so it's not really like a reaction. You can't save people, but they can come in. In addition, anyone and you who remains in the vessel for at least 10 minutes gains the benefit of finishing a short rest. And anyone can add the user's proficiency bonus to the number of hit points they regain whenever they use hit die. As a warlock, this is basically catnap, but you can go inside of your genie's.
It's better than catnap. It's not a spell slot.
No, it's not. You can go inside of your genie's lantern.
Now, the problem being, you could have the villain or somebody, let's say you're doing this in a dungeon, let's say it's a stupid kobold, finds this vessel on the ground,
they
picks it up,
and you lose all your
I was thinking they take it and go somewhere, then you all come out of the vessel and you're surrounded by a bunch of kobolds.
Very possible. Yeah, but...
Cool, though.
If your warlock likes taking catnaps all the time, you pop in for 10 minutes, somebody does a ritual spell, you do whatever. Wow. The last thing is pretty cool. To boil it down, it's another Mystic Arcanum 6th level, essentially. It gives you another 6th level spell slot that has a casting time of 1 action no matter what the spell is. You can pick any spell from any spell list. Don't need the requirements. Don't need any costly components. The spell takes effect as part of this action. So you get to use a wish, and you can cast any spell you want as 1 action from 6th level per 1d4 long rests. Cool.
That is cool.
Honestly,
as the warlock fanboy, how does that make you feel?
I like it. I wouldn't play as it, but I think it's really cool.
Why wouldn't you play as it? It's not Lovecraftian.
More passive. Yeah. It could be really fun. There's a lot of characters you can make with this. And to be honest, the wizard, the Order of the Scribes one, there's so much there that you guys are just gonna have to read it yourself. I'm not
because it's like a whole thing.
There's so much here, but it's really cool. Give it a look. This came out just recently. If you go to Wizards of the Coast website, and you find their most recent Unearthed Arcana stuff, bim bam boom.
Bim bam. You said that was in 3rd edition?
That was in 3.5.
3.5, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It was called The Archivist.
It's cool that they're kind of revisiting and reworking these classes, and maybe listening to our podcast and taking some of our suggestions to heart.
Right. They need to be doing that. So
we had some good suggestions.
I liked this one a lot. I think I like each class. I would play any of these, not over what I currently do. But to wrap up my news thing, I kind of wanted to give you guys something to read or look at.
Yeah, anything else going on?
Yeah, this isn't like super newsy. This stuff has been coming out already. But I don't typically frequent specific article sites, but this one, screenrant.com, does these TLDR things on source material that comes out. This is Dungeons & Dragons, Days of Endless Adventure. Have you heard of this?
Oh, no, never heard of it. What is it?
So these are graphic novels of Legends of Baldur's Gate, Shadows of the Vampire, and Frost Giant's Fury. Days of Endless Adventure is a really great graphic novel of a campaign that could have happened as you follow adventurers as they go through these modules. And the article says that it's a great way to be introduced to D&D. Because a lot of you have been brought into D through Let's Play podcasts. So this could be a really great way for you to get some of your friends into D&D if you're trying to weasel them into
if they prefer like comics or manga, reading stuff instead of...
really cool too. Like, let me pop this in for Ryan to take a look at. If I can't get, I'm going to put it in the secrets chat.
Days of Endless Adventure.
Yeah, it's a graphic novel, just like maybe the Adventure Zone stuff that's coming out or something like this. But look how cool the Adventures of Baldur's Gate looks.
That is very cool. Style. It actually looks very similar to me. I wonder if it's the same artists that are doing Critical Role. They had a graphic novel series, and it looks almost identical.
It could be. I didn't read too far into it, but I just wanted to give you guys a place to go to.
They're quite butt buddies.
Kenneth said Minsk and Boo are the people who did the Critical Role. Thanks for the support, Kenneth. High five. But since that was an Unearthed Arcana, the news segment here isn't going to be like that long every time. But if there's an Unearthed Arcana, I'll give you a little rundown like I did there. Maybe you'll leave one class off so you go see it yourself, try it out. JD agrees.
I'm so sorry. My cat. He's a loud boy.
Yeah, check that out. I think it could be a good way for those of you that maybe haven't played a campaign to... Of course, this is high production. It's going to evoke a lot of like, I want to do this. Right, immediately this.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before.
I was just browsing around and I found it. I was like, that's really
pretty
cool.
Cheap too. At least the compendium is.
Yeah, and it started, I think, in August or earlier of 2019, and that's when Baldur's Gate came out. So I think they're continuously adding modules. How cool is that? That you're taking a module that exists and putting characters into the campaign and then making a graphic novel about it. That's pretty cool.
I wonder. It makes me wonder if this is like the first of its kind, or if they've done other kind of D&D graphic novel.
There's these three, so it's been going on for a little bit. But I'm sure people have drawn their campaign. Like hell, I would want to hire somebody to do ours, but that'd be expensive as hell.
Hey, you're getting good at art.
I'm practicing. It's been really fun. Also, you know what? Let's do a little shout out for an artist that I recently
name drops.
That's what I've been doing with the news too. I think she still has commissions open right now. Yes, she does. So this artist on Instagram, KleiLouu, Claylo, I think is the name. Okay. You can go to her. She's got these little chibi, like small, misproportioned characters that you can draw for 25 USD. And I think after this podcast, I'll maybe post the character she drew for me. If you feel like getting nice little cheap drawings of your D&D characters, give her a little shout out. 25 USD. You can add like a $2 weapon if you want. Yeah,
that's very cheap for that.
Yeah, and she did great, and she kept me updated, and it was a very, very nice and easy process. But yeah, I think on these news stuff, I'll give you some news, give you some stuff to read, and maybe an artist or two to commission if you feel like.
Oh yeah,
because I do that on my own.
Some really good art out there that should be shouted out and should be pointed at more. Just because I think sometimes some artists don't know their worth.
That's very true. You'll see some people commission stuff and it's like, bro, your prices are way too low.
Yeah, it's like $10. That's why you always toss on some tips if they do a great job.
Yeah, she did super, super awesome. So I'll probably commission her again in the future. You know, Ryan, I'm gonna sit back again. Let's what do you got to talk about? Anything else about how the session went? Something you wanted to digest?
A lot happened, yeah. So for sessions for me, whenever I finish one, I don't know how you feel, you know, being a DM now for a little bit yourself. After a session's over, I just I just collapse. I just die, and especially after being super anxious, and it was a big session, let alone one we were coming back to after 2 months. I was nervous if everyone was gonna go over well, what was gonna happen. What the player that we had talked about who died, I had to talk over with him and say, okay, so just a possibility, if you roll a death save and it goes the wrong way, what should we do? And so he came up with some ideas, and that's why I was like, I know his other character's going to come back, because it was like probably the best solution.
There not playing for the next 3 hours that we were there.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
No.
Yeah, so we brought in his other character, and it was a good kind of meet back of everybody. And I was super nervous, super anxious. So after the fact, once everyone leaves my apartment, I close the door and just collapse. My cat comes running over, and we get all snuggly.
Oh man, no, it's the same thing. I had a session on Monday, and for us, it's always coming back after a hiatus. So I deal with this every time. Part of my strategy is to ask them, after I give a recap of whatever the hell I can remember, I say, what do you guys remember? Or if they contradicted me and said something else happened, I'm like, oh yeah, so what happened? And it allows me to use them as a resource. So if you forgot something, but you don't want to give yourself away, Kenneth does this. He knows what happens though. Kenneth's a good DM, but he still asks his players, what did you do? Or what happened last session? You get them active, you get their brain flowing.
Well, that as well as you as DM see what's important to them. Something that you thought was just a random oversight, a random crappy interaction might have been their highlight. Like, okay, let's include more of that moving forward.
Good strategy there. But it's the same for me after that session. We had a long fight. It was the first time I had 6 people level 3 fighting things with like 40 HP plus that could do several things. I don't know where to put what on my screen, what to look at.
It's a lot to juggle.
Those of you that have done it solely through books, flipping pages, using tabs, I don't know how you do it.
Bless your hearts.
Bless your hearts. Because I had like my iPad here open with the map that had the key on it, all that stuff, everything, several pages open with monsters. So coming back, it was just like, bam, what the hell is going on in the session?
Yeah, I always try to translate all my stat blocks and everything onto my laptop. And I just use my one screen on my laptop to handle all the information. I hop around. But every so often I'll forget just because I'm figuring out plot-wise or something, and I forget to put it on. And so I have to go grab the book, and I got to flip through and find exactly what I'm looking for. And I got to keep making sure the page doesn't flop back over. Oh, my God. What did you guys do before technology? It's crazy.
Just write everything down, which...
Yeah, that's what I did. I don't know if you remember, Braxton, but our very first session, I did it all on index cards. I wrote down all the stat blocks instead of utilizing books. My God, the amount of trees I murdered. I was responsible for a whole forest of deaths.
Oh, man, I can't do that. My hand would be burning. But it's great to prep for the session, but you DMs and players out there, you're going to be taxed after this.
Yeah, prep smartly.
Probably. Prep smartly.
We should have a whole session on prep.
I mean, we kind of did in our first series of creating stuff, which if you've joined at this point, I don't know how good it is. I had fun doing it. We made a how to start a campaign, what to do, and I think it was like a 7-episode series of where you're going, what you need to do, session 0 to, getting your campaign started, etc.
Yeah.
Feel free to go check that back out. It should be right after the
But specifically on prepping, everyone preps differently.
Yeah.
And you can prep stupidly. You can prep and just waste your life, or you can prep smartly. And we've shouted this out a few times, but the Lazy Dungeon Master, actually, I think it's Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master by Sly Flourish.
Yeah, he re-edited
100% recommend to check that out if you don't know how to prep.
That's basically what I do now. I kind of write off the inspiration of wherever I ended to keep going, and then I improv most of it outside of like story beats I want to hit. But God, I mean, just re-hitting back off of that, ending the session, like you said, you flopped over. I went immediately to bed and like woke up at 3 a.m. and I was like, what is going on? So I guess the question I want to ask you now, Ryan, and I can probably pose this to myself, is after a fun session like that, having a successful return to D&D, because we listened to the dungeon crawl, we used their advice, what do you do to keep the momentum going? What are you going to keep? How are you going to make sure that you live up to how great of a session that was? You can't just drop the quality.
No, you got it. That's it. It's only downhill from there, man.
Damn. Okay.
No, you got to take. No, you got to take what you learn to heart and always check in. And I try to do this every so often. Check in with my players. Say what you think I'm doing well, what you think we're doing bad, and don't get offended by it. As a DM, you got to anything where you take criticism, take it with
buck up.
Listen to it, understand it. Don't just say, "Ah, you stupid bastard, I'm doing it correctly."
Have your players write their feedback on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
You take that paper, you look at it, and then you eat it.
Toss it in the trash. Put it in the recommendation folder.
So hopefully, through all of this, at some point, you got some advice that helped you about prepping D&D after a long hiatus, because I'm sure a lot of you will be coming back into it as wherever you are in the world reopens social gatherings, there's less quarantining going on.
Stay safe.
You're able to pop in, wear your masks maybe if you're still concerned about that.
Stay 6 feet away.
It's no matter what your view on the pandemic is, you can always be safer. So I want to, of course, we don't get too much audience feedback here, but the off chance that somebody will, if you run a session after listening to this podcast and it inspires you to get back into your session again and try to find a way to get back with your players, and you learn something through doing the session or you do something different, toss us a message at thedungeoncrawlpod@gmail.com. If you want to send us a lengthy descriptor on what happened, shoot us a DM on Instagram at dungeoncrawlpod, or also at Twitter at the same handle.
Yeah, if you got 180 characters worth of information, drop it there.
Go ahead, do that. Ryan knows the next bits.
Yeah, make sure you rate us 5 stars on the old iTunes if you like what you hear. Even if you don't, it still helps us out quite a lot.
I don't know how it helps, but it looks
that still helps. No, it gets us higher in the charts, man. You want to be high up in those charts.
Hell yeah. I think we mentioned this before, but maybe last episode. We hit 3,000 listens recently, and today actually was our 40th episode. We'll have our 1 year in just over a month on the June 30th episode. That'll be the last Tuesday in June. So we've been doing this for almost a year. Just want to thank you guys.
How exciting is that?
Listening. It's very exciting. It's been a fun ride here. Got lots of new fun stuff to come. I think next episode, we're going to do one-shots.
What?
Got a little friend that might be joining in if they have the time.
They are.
You guys, you know them
the
well.
one-shot person.
They actually just ran one, Ryan, I found out. So it's very topical. So
okay,
we'll need to reach
That's
out
what I'm
and say,
talking
hey,
about.
Gather your information.
Because I've done 3 maybe 4 one-shots.
I've done one, and it's not a one-shot.
Yeah, we haven't finished it, so we definitely didn't do it in one shot.
I should probably do it again soon now that this has happened. Whatever happened last session. Could probably do it next time we figure
And you could even take what you learned from this podcast and take it to heart.
I don't know any of the names of whatever the hell was going on, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, me either. I remember what my character was.
The Dungeon Crawl. That's who we are. He's Ryan.
Yeah, that's been Braxton.
Thanks for
listening, guys. We appreciate it. Check us out on Discord, please. Hop in there.
There's a link in the description
right
somewhere.
Yeah, it should be there.
After the lovely thing that Ryan writes, it's somewhere. Okay, bye.
Yeah, it's there.